Hey. Um, so today I kind of wanted to talk about a common topic, but sort of so difficult. Um, you guys have probably seen my other video about how was speaking about God giving me my miracle babies. Well, today I wanted to speak on miscarriages and the process of and what it's like for individuals who are going through miscarriages and how we as friends or we as people can be like of a good help. First of all, to be clear, I went through 3 miscarriages. The first one was I was pregnant with triplets, and then the second one was 1, and then the third one was 1. And by the time it came around, by the time I've lost all of those babies, the doctor started calling me a habitual aborter. Which you can imagine what it felt like for me, and I guess that's kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight, being open and transparent with that. I remember my first miscarriage. I remember being filled with hurt. I remember being numbed. And I remember telling everybody, well, hey, I'm not pregnant anymore. I had a miscarriage. And I remember with less than a week, everybody else had moved on. But I was still stuck. I was still stuck in it, and stuck so to the point where it was almost like a paralysis that took over my mind. That was what my mind was fasted upon, was the miscarriage. And I guess trying to understand why something like that happened to me. Of course, when I first found out I was pregnant, at that time I was young, so you can imagine I was doing things I had no business doing. And at first it was scary, but by the time I got used to the idea, it was like, man, now it's over. I had in my mind of, okay, I'm not gonna panic, I'm not gonna give up, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make it, we're gonna make it. And the guy that I was with at the time, he was, there with me, and we're gonna make it. And before I knew it, it was over with, and I was stuck, and I just wanted to, at that point, I just wanted to have a baby. So I guess the tip number 1 that I would give for people who are around people who are suffering from miscarriages, or someone who's lost a baby, don't ask why, why they keep having all those kids or why they keep getting pregnant. Until you lived it, it's kind of hard to understand. But at that point, it's more so of, there's this emptiness, and I gotta feel normal. I gotta feel like a woman, because some of you may know what I'm talking about. But when you, as a woman, feel like you can't have kids, you no longer feel like a woman. You no longer, and I can't speak for everybody else, so I'm speaking for myself. I felt like at that point, like, what's the point of me being if I can't have kids? If I can't, produce a baby successfully, what's the point of me being? So in my mind, me constantly trying was going to get me a baby. Me constantly pushing, me constantly doing things myself in my own strength, me constantly pursuing being pregnant was going to get me a baby. And at that time, the only thing that got me was more miscarriages and more heartbreak, and me struggling, feeling like something was wrong with me. I didn't feel normal. I didn't feel like a normal woman. I just struggled, being a woman, period. I would see other women with new babies, and it would break me down. The thought of a baby would break me down. People talking about a baby would break me down, because I had started to feel like I was incapable. I had started to feel like I wasn't normal. And so that really that really bothered me mentally, emotionally. Like I said, I was paralyzed in it. But I don't talk about something that I went through without bringing encouragement and without using biblical references for the encouragement. And when I think about the miscarriages, and when I think about everything that I had went through, I think about Hannah, and I think about Elizabeth. You know, Elizabeth was barren, and she didn't get pregnant until her old age. But I really think about Hannah because when I got pregnant, I finally broke down, and I finally prayed to God. And God is so good that even in our mess, He will bless us. Even in our stuff, He will show us that He is God. And so I got tired of trying to do it on my own. I got tired of trying to make myself feel normal, to the point where I cried out to God, and I was like, God, I know you didn't make me to be here to feel like this. I know you didn't make me to feel like I'm not normal. You created me as a woman. God, help me. I don't know what to do. God, I need you. And I remember during that time, I was in college, and I would go back to my dorm and read my word. And one day, I don't know what it was, but one day I was reading my word, and there was this overwhelming, happy feeling that came upon me. And it was awesome. And I just remember saying that, God, I trust you. And whenever it happens, it happens. But I already know, that I am going to name my children. I'm going to name my child or a child, because at the time it was just a child, out of the Bible. And a couple of weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. So God is a good God. He is so good to us that He blesses us even in our mess. Because I wasn't married, I was still young. But I pleaded with God, and I was just like, God, I could do it. Just trust me. I could do it. And lo and behold, He did. He trusted me, and I got pregnant. And I think about Hannah because Hannah had fallen out so much before the Lord that they thought she was drunken, but she was overwhelmed in His Spirit. She was overwhelmed with His Spirit. And, of course, in the Old Testament, it doesn't really talk about, the Spirit, but you compare Hannah to New Testament teaching. Hannah was slayed in the Spirit. And it wasn't until she got inside of God that God was able to move in her life and on her behalf. And it was almost like watching the slow process and watching her losing. And I think for me personally, I feel like, even though it doesn't feel good, God has His reasoning behind that. Hannah began to realize that her strength was not in her. Her being was not in her. Her strength and her being was in God. The same thing for me. I began to realize that my strength was not in me. My being was not in me. My being and my strength was in God. And the same thing with Elizabeth. She thought, hey, I'm old, I can't have children. But God showed her otherwise. So when we begin to get discouraged and thinking about a time clock, or thinking about our situation, or what something looked like, or what the doctor said, they called me a habitual aborter. It was to the point where we were thinking that I could not have kids. But God said otherwise. I had to open up my mind and my heart to trust Him and claim and know who God created me to be. I knew that God created me, to be a woman. I knew that I had a desire to have kids, and I knew that God would not give me that desire if He was not going to give me children. So for you guys who are or have suffered from miscarriages, there is hope. For you guys who are around people who have suffered miscarriages, don't automatically assume that just because they miscarried, they moved on. Because they haven't. It's not that easy. When they get emotional and you don't understand, it's best to be quiet because it's still a loss. And they still have a right to mourn. Allow them that right. I'm here to to just encourage you guys, and I kind of wanted to be open. That was something I really never talked about, my feelings and how I didn't feel normal, how I didn't feel like a woman, and it led to a lot of depression, the actual mourning, because I don't think I gave myself time enough to mourn the first loss before I had a second, and then before I had a third loss, and it was kind of like back to back, and we just kept trying. And what I realized over time, ladies, that we're not the only ones that suffered that loss. Dad suffered that loss too, and we can't be so selfish to where we exclude Daddy out of that loss, because they have a right to mourn as well. And even when you're feeling whether or not you're normal, Daddy's questioning whether or not he's normal as well. Especially when we don't have all of the information. So we need to be mindful of that. And it's okay to mourn. Those feelings of not feeling normal, or feeling like you lost out, or even feeling angry, they're normal. They are normal. And you won't be able to heal until you acknowledge those feelings. I'm here to encourage you guys. I'm here to let you guys know that with faith, with trust in God and trust in His process, anything is possible. I am now a mommy of 2 beautiful kids that were well worth waiting on. They were well worth waiting for. And I was ready for them, more ready than what I would have been before. And I know that doesn't take away the pain. I know that doesn't stop the hurt. And for me, it didn't. And it's still a tough subject to talk about. Because to a certain extent, it seems kind of embarrassing. To a certain extent, it's like, I don't want people to know that I was feeling like that. But it's normal, and it's okay. Thank you guys for chiming in with me. Like I said, as I begin to unravel, as I begin to reflect more and learn, my ultimate goal is to share with you guys in hopes of healing, in hopes of helping someone. I truly, truly hope that this has helped. I know what it's like to go through and feel alone, and to feel like everyone has moved on. If you are someone who has suffered miscarriages or going through, not being able to have children, understand and know that you're not alone. You're not alone. And trust and believe that God works miracles every day. Of course, what we call to be miracles is not to God, Those are mundane things to God. He does those anyway. But God is open, and if you just open your heart to Him, to begin to trust Him, He'll begin to move the same way He moved in Hannah, the same way He moved in Elizabeth, the same way He moved in me. Thank you.